Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining. Please make yourselves comfortable. We will start in a few seconds' time. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's great to see you all again. Thank you very much for joining. This is a really interesting session, I think, for me on all sorts of levels, because I think it must be about 4 years ago now, if not a little bit longer. I went through a period of my life, as I think many people did, sort of navel gazing and stress and all sorts of things going on, um, and made me reflect a little bit on who I was and how I got here, what had made me into what I was, and started joining up a bunch of dots, essentially in my own mind. But before we go into all of that today, just want to go through the usual bits and pieces. So feel free to drop your name and where you are from in the chat. We are all human beings. This is a recorded session, though. It's being live broadcast on YouTube. So please feel free to come off mute. If you want to speak, feel free to type into the chat as well. And this is a safe learning zone, as always. So we will typically be doing what we usually do on these weekly conversations, which is talking about technology, the people-centered angles of it, the environmental-centered angles on it, and also security and things like that. My name is Gareth Jones. You can find out more about me there, but that's my profile from LinkedIn. And what I'd really like you to do today is join me in helping us make a positive impact if you're on this call. So you can pick up your phones and you can scan that QR code in, and it will take you to a nice page. And this is a nice page too. This is our website where we track all of our positive impacts. You won't see this. You'll get to choose from three projects which we've selected for today's call. So please join me in making a positive impact with your tokens, please. Right. So let's get back to what we are essentially talking about today, which is around mental strength and well-being, I've called it. I want to talk a little bit about a metaphor and where I kind of started my journey with all of this on an amazing coach who's been with me over the last few years on this journey as well. I want to talk about why we should reflect. I'm going to talk about this in the context of a modern workforce tool, which you may already have. So we'll point you to that. We'll show you how to parameterize some of this, which I've called out of fun, parameters to peace. You'll see some of the context around that as we go through. There's a lot of stigma around mental health. And for me personally, I always empathized with people that had mental health challenges. I'd seen the product of this in my own career and also in my own family. But I'd never been through an episode like I'd been through, where you can be so scared on a daily basis that you're so scared to get out of bed. You can be physically shaking down the street. It's hard for me to look back and think that I was like that. But I know that I was like that. I'm not like that anymore. But for me to go through that journey and basically see how the mind could have such a big impact on everything that we do. For me, the mind has always been the strongest tool, which we've got. I still believe that. But you need to look after that tool. Now, if you were in the special services, or the SAS, the Royal Marines, all of those sorts of things, these professionals, they're taught to look after their mind because they know what happens to the mind under stress. And they're taught to control all of these things. And there are little tools which we can use in our day-to-day lives to go through that. But here's the metaphor. Now, I'm sat in the room, all of this has happened to me. I'm talking to Colin, and he puts this glass in front of me. And it's important to drink water, by the way, which is why I've got a glass today. That glass, it's nearly full up. And he said, that glass, that's you. What do you think will happen? It's such a simple metaphor, but it's very powerful. What do you think is going to happen if I continue to pour water into that glass? That's not going to happen today. I'm going to drink the glass. But see, it will spill, make a lot of mess, lots of other things which we can imagine from that metaphor. But it did really open a door to thinking about why we should reflect. Now, I'd been on a course at Henley Business School, which is amazing, an amazing leadership course, which had taught me tools and techniques to be your best self as a leader, and the types of things to manage certain pressures, tapping. If you haven't looked at that, it's pretty good, by the way. I won't cover it here, but tapping's quite good. You can get apps for it. There's lots of different tools and techniques which we can use. I'd forgotten some of them. There's a lot of things to remember, right, on these courses. But over the course of time, I started to bring them back into play and also start to meld them with some of the things which Microsoft were doing at that time, and they still are, around Viva, and particularly this thing called Viva Insights. And if you are a Teams user, you can probably access this by clicking on the three dots on your sidebar and adding this in. We've got a couple of pictures on that later on. But what Viva Insights does, and you can do this with a bit of paper, you don't need Viva Insights, but it's super cool, is it enables you to reflect, and it kind of like goes, oh, by the way, you might want to do this. Now, when you do it, it comes up with this little chart, and depending on how many times you do it, you get a little score, and it's a score which is just for you. Your manager doesn't see this. Whenever Viva Insights aggregates anything, it will always do it on a minimum of 10 people. And then it's all confidential, and people have tested this left, right, and center. There's lots of papers and all sorts of things you can read about it, but it's safe. But from your own point of view, it provides this nice digital log. Now, I would encourage you to think about your entire system, right? Is your mind, your body, your stomach. And your stomach and your mind, well, they are connected. And you've even got neurons in your stomach, which can result in things like reflux, increased acidity. And if you start to think about your system, your entire system, and why it's acting in a certain way and responding in a certain way to certain events, people, things, you can start to take a journey to this path of well-being and mental strength. Now, although this is an application, don't think that you can come away today and switch this on and think, oh, that's fine, I've got my well-being and it's all good. This is going to be a personal journey for everyone, and there is no race. But it's a thing that you go in, try and do little things on a daily basis to give you a stronger experience, really, of this journey we called life. So you click in your reflections here, it gives you a happy face, you things. But the good thing about this, if you think about what I call red flags, so those times when you don't feel great, or even you just start to track it, you maybe then be able to identify what those red flags are in your lives and make some practical steps to improving it. I did say that you could find this on Teams, and if you are there, you can just go in to this and find it there. You can add in other apps as well. Now, I'm not perfect, which is why I've got a nice cup of tea with caffeine in it, as long with my glass of water. And that's the thing, right? And by the way, caffeine isn't that great for you, but sometimes it's needed. But yeah, it has a terrible half-life and it can interrupt the sleep patterns. Things like these watches that you get everywhere, they'll be on your phones as well. They're really useful for tracking your sleep, which is a key contributor to being your best self and using your own mental strength. Because without it, you'll find that stress indicators go up and down. But when you start to reflect on these things, and that's the importance of reflection, then you might be able to see patterns in your own life, and they won't necessarily be the same patterns as anyone else, and they shouldn't be. You shouldn't compare yourself to anyone else's patterns because you are your own unique ecosystem of things. So, yeah, check it out. I'd encourage you to take a look. And I'm just going to quickly drink my tea. The other great thing about Viva Insights is that from a personal perspective, you get these well-being and productivity areas. Now, it does require your active participation in these things in order to build an appropriate culture. And it's important, I think, for people to lead the way in that. But I'm just going to ripple through a couple of the screens that you get here. So sending praise to colleagues. I mean, I like to think that we all do that. But here, it's actually being a bit more proactive and saying, why don't you set a little bit of time aside on a regular basis and think about how people have positively impacted X, Y, or Z. Now, there is a lot of academic reading you can do around this area and lines of positive psychology. But whether it's parenting or managing people or just really being a nice person, focusing on positives from a neurological and neuroscience perspective is a lot stronger from a learning basis. And yeah, there's all sorts of reasons, but essentially, do we really need a reason to be nice to each other? You can say praise to your colleagues. Have a think about it. I'm sure they're all doing amazing things. You can go in here, log in this, send praise. They get a nice little badge, and it feels good. And you can collect your little badges, and they can be part of your community and team's experience here as well. Virtual commute reminders. Now, if you're running a hybrid business or a remote business, then it's quite easy to get up in the morning and sort of slip away to wherever you are, the Lightrise cabin in this sense, and carry on working. But it's not really what we have got this far doing. For many hundreds of thousands of years, we've all been pastoralists and this sort of thing, and we weren't designed in our minds to just go away and beaver away on IT all day long. So it is important to have breaks. And if you were going to the office, you would probably, take a stroll through the park or get your favorite coffee and do those things. It's good to do those things if you genuinely can't do those things. And it's not always possible, let's face it, because life does intervene. Sometimes you get these virtual commute reminders and they're good at the start of the day, they're good at the end of the day. But what it's trying to do is provide a divide. a divide in your own mind between what it can perceive to be as the reality around it, in terms of work and its experience, and make a quick distinction between the two. And those virtual commutes essentially enable you to do that. Right. The next one along, though, is thinking about how we operate essentially on our day-to-day basis. Now, yeah, having an open door experience, that's something we'd all like to have. And the reality is that's what we do have when we are using things like Teams and Slack and all of these things, permanently online, whether it's on a computer or on our phones. I would encourage you to try and get a separate phone for work. If you can't do that, then use the facilities on your phone, which closes things down. So again, try to reinforce this distinction between your home physical environment and your work physical environment, which may be the same thing sometimes. But even if you work in the office, it's good practice to shut off from work. There are laws about this in some European countries around the right to switch off, and very important pieces of legislation in some countries out there. With this, though, you can enhance that basically by putting your own quiet time in there, because you might need a system like this to prompt you and just remind you that these were important barriers, fences, borders, whatever you want to call them, in your life to protect time for certain things. Now, everyone gets their energy from different places. You might be an extroverted person, you might get energy from talking all the time, but you might be an introverted person that doesn't get your energy from that all the time, needs to focus. But either way, people tend to need to protect some time to concentrate on the important tasks. And if you can reflect on a regular basis what that 20% is that you are heading towards and your goal that's going to bring you value, focus, and everything else to get you there, that's a really good thing to be doing, or learning in these quiet times as well. And some of the nice things about these solutions is that as an administrator, you can kind of set expectations culturally around an organization around how many hours is acceptable for people to be learning. And it should be acceptable for people to be learning, because the world is moving at an ever increasing speed. And it's going to be very important for people to learn to keep up. But here, on a personal basis, you can track your settings, you can go through there and make changes as you need to. Here is our parameters for peace, and hence the peace and quiet, the quiet time, the focus time, all of that. Well, this is a view as an administrator. Now, you'll need to go in there. If you are running your own tenant, maybe you're a micro business, maybe you've got someone like us managing it for you. You might have an internal IT manager as well that owns this, but essentially you're looking for the administrator of your organization who, behind the scenes, can make some changes for the culture of your organization. So IT and HR colleagues, you really need to get together on this one, because this is quite important from an angle of what you can then do in terms of thinking about the culture of your organization and whether this tool is having some success really in your aspirational and maybe written down in governance goals. We've got the insights, advanced insights and metrics page here. And there's a link to it just below. This is on Microsoft Learn. You can take a look at this, but it goes into the detail of what insights is capturing behind the scenes, and the types of things that it will help you with is, if you've got lots of lots of people in your business that basically think success is driven by working all of the hours, which any infinite being has created for us. Now, the reality is there's 1,440 minutes in a day, and you can use most of those up for work if you are driven that way. But we do know what happens to that glass of water when you do those sorts of things, and you certainly will probably not be growing. So I'd encourage you to try and switch off and do all those things. But you can actually monitor it. It's like, well, there's that Gareth again. He's been working out of hours. And I do that occasionally. But you shouldn't be doing it all the time. And if you've got an inherent problem in your culture, this will reveal it. And it will reveal all the other things as well. And it might say, well, actually, you're really doing some amazing collaboration. And, it's seeing, some success around that. So it's quite interesting when you start to get into this, but again, people do get a little bit concerned from a privacy perspective, but it's all locked away in the Microsoft secure ecosystem. And if you ever are concerned, then you can put multiple layers of security on these things as well to really tighten things up. Throughout all of this, it's interfaces is looking for you and encouraging you to act with intent. And I think this is really quite interesting, actually, because it's a bit disruptive. It's a bit disruptive because you might expect to get some of this advice, mentoring from a good manager. And here we've got Viva Insights, kind of encouraging you to do things as well, based on its own information. And it might start to suggest that you want to reduce your hours. If you set your key hours up to be a certain time, it would do things like that for you, which in a way I think is probably stronger in many use case scenarios. And it can only be strengthened, though, if you are really considering that from a change perspective and supporting it culturally with communications and engagement with all of your people, I would say, to make sure that these things are acceptable as part of your culture. But here, acting with intent, we've got our ability, you can see there, we've got some focus time. It can enable us to take a breather break. Now, Microsoft, when they started out, they teamed up with this great organization called Headspace. It was run by this guy called Andy, who'd spent many of his years training to be a Buddhist monk, and then brought back all of his spiritual mindfulness techniques and teachings back into that Headspace app. Check it out, it's really good. But when Microsoft started with this product, a stronger relationship with them, and it's taken some of the influence from that, and it's still got it here today with the things like those breather breaks and some of the articles and the focus and the things that you can really bring into this experience. So I would encourage you to check it out. These are the tools which the highest performing leaders use. This is what people and academic professionals talk about at places like Henley Business School, how you can be that best picture of yourself. Now, there's no such thing as perfection, I'm afraid. That doesn't exist. But we can strive to be better versions of ourselves. And by doing that through mindfulness and different techniques, there's all sorts of things out there. Pick something that works for you. But again, with tools like this, it can really make an impact in your organizations as well. It is always great to spend time with yourselves. Thank you all very much for joining today. I'm going to sip my water now and just see if there's any questions. Yeah, let's open the debate up. If you want to have a chat, please do come off mute. But again, thank you very much for joining.
Hey Gareth, Owen here, just to help you out there and make sure it's not all one-way traffic. It's obviously a very important thing these days with mental awareness and stress in the workplace, and you really do need an employer that's going to embrace this and support this and not pay it lip service, because a lot of employers are under pressure these days to do more with less, cost cutting initiatives, AI coming in, puts everybody under pressure. So you need a very supportive employer who's not going to just pay it lip service. They need to make it part of the culture.
Yeah, yeah, they do. And I think it's very important for the leadership of those cultures to take on board some of this journey themselves. And I would encourage people to look at the science. I think look at the science, speak to your HR colleagues. They've got a lot of statistics around the benefits of taking an approach, a genuine, authentic approach like this. And there are lots of examples of really strong organizations out there that are doing this as well. And this is why I think I wanted to just relabel this from mental health to mental strength, because actually, you know, in the business world, we're thinking about this from a mental health perspective. But as I said there, like if you, special forces and people like that in high pressure organizations, this is a strength tool. This is about how do you improve your strength? And we all know the world is changing, and under all those pressures there, as you just said, there will be more of them. And we need to adapt and start that journey of mental strength training, because that will enable us to manage things more effectively, I think, and to get more enjoyment over what we're faced with in terms of the challenges and all those sorts of things. Great conversation. Thank you very much, though. Any other viewpoints, thoughts, questions?
I'll certainly have a look at the tool myself. It just from a licensing point of view, to get away from mental side of things, the practicality of it. Is it part of E3 or Microsoft licensing packages?
It is actually part of many different packages. So, what we all knew as Office essentially is now M365, a cloud-based suite of applications. Now, I've called something out here on the screen. So thank you very much for that lead in there. Business Premium has it, but as you say, you've got other packages as well, such as E3, E5, which go up to the enterprise level, so into the thousands of employees. But yeah, they have Viva as part of it as well. There is a comparison site on Microsoft's site where you can compare these things. We think for small to medium businesses, that Business Premium is good, which is why we've called it out there, because you get this excellent suite of Teams, which is coming out of its licensing now. It's going to be separated off slightly with all the enhanced things that Teams provides, like voice calling and all of that voicemail stuff and that you can need. But at a base level, Premium's got the Teams, it's got your Word, it's got your Excel. It's also got these really key areas around cybersecurity and the protection of your endpoints, locking down data loss. So you don't want your financial information slipping out on a PDF in Teams, that sort of stuff. It blocks it all down, which is why we think it's a really compelling offer for small businesses. But you also get those tools as part of E3, as Microsoft call it. And we've got a new cybersecurity service which we're bringing online, which takes advantage of a new bolt-on, which Microsoft have got in play, which is an E5 cybersecurity. Now, don't get confused with all these terms. We've tried to distill this down into a simple monthly payment to make things nice and simple for yourselves. But essentially, what we're talking about here is a suite of applications and tools, including Viva, for which we've been talking about today in terms of Viva Insights, across many of those subscriptions. And they go from things which are really, really cost effective for just frontline workers through to full on enterprise level applications, software, and storage.
Yeah,
Any
very
further
good.
questions?
Think about licensing Microsoft. Just when you get on top of it all, and percentage level, the goalposts change again.
They change it. They change it every time. Anyone in this space. Yeah, one of the things that you certainly need to do and have time to learn is around the licensing, if that's the way you need to understand, because things like Dynamics comes out monthly, and there's always changes, always incentives as well.
Yeah.
And there's never been more incentives than there are from Microsoft at this present time that I've seen in my career. But yeah, it's good. It's an exciting time. Hopefully you found that useful, folks. So again, thank you very much for joining. If you do get any questions, please reach out. Please help us make a positive impact on some of these UN goals. It's what we like to do as a business, and make positive impacts through our IT services, getting the best value out of some of these common products which we all need, but there's hidden value in them, and get you success in a sustainable way. So yeah, feel free to use the QR code there, sign up. We can further this conversation with you, but more importantly, you can make a positive impact with us today. I will just check to see if there is any questions which I've missed on the IMs. I don't think so, but thank you very much for engaging. It's great to see you from all around the world, and thank you very much for coming, and I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Take care.
Thanks, Gareth. Good week. Bye.
Bye-bye now.